Welcome to the I Am Mom Summit. My name is Tanner Clark, and I am clearly not a mom, but I am a dad. I'm actually a father of four. I have two teenagers, which remind me every single day that I'm not funny and that I don't know as much as I think I do. But I have a 16-year-old daughter who scares me every single day, and it's not because she's driving, it's because of all the other things that come with being a 16-year-old girl. I've got a 13-year-old son who is just incredible and the light of my life. I've got a 10-year-old tweenage daughter who is the epitome of a tweenager. And I've got a 7-year-old son who tests our patience more than any of the other kids. For some reason, he's convinced all of his friends and his teachers to call him Bob. And he's even asked us to legally change his name to Bob, which we're not going to do. But I've been married to my beautiful wife and best friend for over 18 years, and we live in Midway, Utah. I'm also a teen advocate and motivational speaker. I have the privilege and blessing of going into middle schools and high schools, churches, and talking with teenagers about their self-worth, helping them recognize their value and how just truly incredible they are. I also get to talk with teenagers about the things that are hurting their hearts and holding them back from becoming the person that they can become. Because let's face it, teenagers are facing a lot of trials and a lot of struggles that we didn't face when we were young. But I also believe that teenagers have this incredible ability. They have the power and they have the control to overcome all of the challenges that they're facing right now. And I get to help them recognize that this tough time that they're in, this challenging period, it's really only 7% of their entire life, and things are going to get so much better. But for the next few minutes, I hope I can share with you something that will help you help them. And at the end of the day, that's why we're all here. We're all here because we get to pour into our families. We get to pour into the people we love. And unfortunately, sometimes we pour from an empty cup and it's exhausting. And so I'm grateful that you're here. I'm grateful that you're coming to listen to all these incredible speakers who are going to give you all these tips and all this advice because when we fill our cup, I believe when we fill our cup, not just to the top, but when we overflow our cup, that's when we can continually pour into the people that we love. And that's what it takes. And so I'm grateful you're here, and I'm grateful we get to talk today and that we get to do this. A couple of years ago, I had an experience that literally changed my life. It changed the way I see the world. It changed the way I raise my kids. It changed me into a better father and a better husband. But I was kneeling by my bed one night. It was the magic time. You know this time of night, right? The kids have just gone to bed and you can finally have peace, right? You know what I'm talking about. Because being a parent is exhausting. I mean, again, we've spent our entire day pouring into these people we love. And whether you work like I do, or you're a stay-at-home mom, which means you work harder than I do, like this is the time. This is the magic time. And we get to sit down and we get to watch Netflix and binge watch Grey's Anatomy for the thousandth time. At least that's what my wife does. But you know what I'm talking about, right? And so this night I was kneeling by the bed and I was actually on my phone. I was scrolling Instagram. I know the worst thing that you could possibly do for a digital conference like this, but I was scrolling Instagram and then I heard it. Footsteps, little footsteps walking down the hall, little dreaded footsteps. And out of the corner of my eye, I could see my daughter. And she was just waiting for me to ask her what was wrong. And Quincy's my get out of bed child. She's the one who is almost every night getting out of bed. And there's always something, right? She needs a drink of water. Her head hurts. Her stomach hurts. And on this particular night, I said, Quincy, what's wrong? And she said, Dad, my toe hurts. Took a deep breath, right? And usually, like so many nights before, I would just give her a quick hug, tell her that sleep is going to help her feel better, and I would send her off to her room. But tonight was different. I felt something was different. Tonight, I could tell that something was off. And, you know, what I've learned also in life is that kids speak in code. They don't tell us what they're thinking. They don't tell us their emotions or what's wrong, but they show us. They show us with their actions. They show us with their facial expressions. And on this particular night, I felt something was off. And so I called her over, and while she was walking over, I threw my phone across the bed, and I made a decision right then and there that I was going to hug her until she let go. And she held me for 5 minutes. And as I held her, my heart sank. I thought about the hundreds of 2-second off to bed hugs that I'd given her. I thought about all of the times where I had just shoved her away and missed an opportunity to love my daughter and show her how much I love her so that I could protect my peace. And I learned 2 valuable lessons that night. The first, we need to give our kids individual, intentional time every single day. And we need to love them as much as they need to be loved, not as much as we think they need to be loved. Because there's a big difference between what I thought, 2 seconds, and what she needed, 5 minutes. And so we need to love them as much as they need to be loved. The second thing I learned that night was that I had the power. I recognized that I had the power and the control over my smartphone and social media when in 1 single second of strength, I had the power to throw my phone across the room so that I could be present for my daughter and distance myself from the thing that was keeping me from loving her as much as she needed to be loved. You see, the amount of love we give our kids and our smartphones are inextricably intertwined, kind of like a maverick and rooster nosedive below the hard deck. Our smartphones are causing a downward spiral of joy in our kids' lives. And I see this every single time I go into a school and talk with teenagers. When I talk about FOMO and comparison and self-worth, and we talk about how many kids feel less than because their lives aren't as luxurious or as beautiful as the highlight reels of influencers that they see on Instagram. I see it in these teenagers' eyes every single time. Because the truth is, right now, in every home in America, there is a war being fought for our attention. Social media is the nuclear weapon, and the greatest casualties are today's teenagers. And it's happening for a couple of reasons. The first is, as a parent, we are so drawn to our smartphones, and sometimes maybe we don't mean it, but we put our phone literally in between us and our kids. And when we do that, we devalue our kids while we increase the value of our smartphones. One study showed that 91% of adults always have their phone within arm's reach. Another study shows that 51% of teens say their parents are distracted by their smartphone when they're having a conversation. I mean, it's hard to feel loved when you're distracted while your kid's talking to you. The relationship we have with our kids has to be more important than the relationship with our phone. And I'd ask you, what's more important, that relationship or checking in on that influencer that we don't even know? What's more important, laughing at just one more meme online or creating memory moments, belly laughing with our teenagers in a way that we can never, ever replicate online? Now, let's be honest, I'm not getting rid of my smartphone and you're not getting rid of your smartphone, but I think we need to stop and do a little bit of self-reflection and ask ourselves, how strong is the relationship with our phones versus how strong is the relationship with our kids? Second, our teenagers are losing the attention war because the apps and devices are developed specifically with them in mind. Teenagers today are struggling. Anxiety, depression, suicide, all of these are on the rise. Suicide is the #2 cause of death amongst teenagers. And I believe if you look at the struggles and you look at the challenges that you're having in your home right now with your kids or with yourself or with your husband, if you look at the challenges that you're having, I believe that it all ties back to the moment you put a smartphone in their hand. Teenagers are spending on average 7 hours a day on their devices. If your teenager has Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and Snapchat, or as I call it, crap chat, if they have all of these devices and they spend the average amount of time that teenagers spend on each one of them, then studies show they will spend 71 days, 71 full 24-hour days on those devices. That's 20% of their time. That's over 2 months of their year that they are invested in those 4 apps. And I always ask myself, if a teenager is going to reach their full potential, how can they do it if 20% of their time is spent in front of their phones and comparing themselves to people that they don't even know? I talked with a teenager not long ago, and she told me in one day that week, she spent 17 and a half hours on TikTok. 17 and a half hours on TikTok. That is what becoming a casualty of the attention war looks like. Our brain is this complex system that develops and grows as we grow, but the part of the brain that's responsible for logic, rational thought, decision making, it just doesn't develop in the teenager's brain until around the age of 25. Until then, teenagers are thinking emotionally. Ever asked your kid to pick up their socks off the floor or to empty the dishwasher, and it's like an all-out war broke loose in your house? It's because your teenagers are thinking emotionally. They're not thinking logically that if they just do this for 2 minutes, that they'll get back to doing whatever they want to do. They think with this emotional part of their brain. And the more time that teenagers spend online with their devices in social media, the more they want it, because the dopamine that is communicated to their brain through those apps feels so good. I call it the feel-good funnel, and they want more, 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 more. And it works on a subconscious level. Have you ever had your phone off to the side and you just felt anxious that you needed to check it to see if you got any more likes, or you got any more views, or you got any more follows? That subconscious level is cortisol going to the brain that makes you believe that you need to check it, and it causes anxiety in us. And so the result is we check our phone. And right now there is a young, eager engineer who is coming up with the next feature or the next algorithm to trap the teenage brain even longer. They can do it just a little bit longer. They win because there's big money, big companies spending big money to capture just one more second of your time, your teenager's time. They see the value in our teenagers. It's time that our teenagers start seeing the value in themselves. And that only happens when they devalue social media. Today, I would invite you to change the narrative in your life, change the narrative in your teenager's life, change the narrative in your home. Change the narrative in a way that strengthens the bond with your family and sets your teenagers up for success in a world that honestly doesn't care if they succeed. And it starts with a decision, a single decision that takes 1 second of strength to do, a decision that you will not become a statistic of the digital age, that you'll stop thinking, not my kid, and that you won't become a casualty of the attention war. Because when we take back our time, and choose to be present in the moments that require our presence, the result is a strengthened family bond that cannot be broken. So fix your focus and turn your attention away from your phone and towards your kids, towards the things that matter most. Commit to spending individual, intentional time with your kids every single day. Try doing the thing that they love most. Maybe that's sports. Maybe that's dancing. Maybe it's video games. Mom, when was the last time you sat down and actually played a video game with your kid? It's probably been a while, if ever, right? But if that's their favorite thing, then maybe that's how we need to spend some intentional time with them. Commit to loving your kids as much as they need to be loved. Try hugging them until they let go. See how long they hold on. I bet it's longer than 2 seconds. Ask your teenagers, how are they really doing? Not just how you doing. How are they really doing? Find out. Remember, teenagers won't talk in words. They're not going to tell you their emotions or tell you what they're feeling, but their verbal cues will show it. Talk with them. Open up that dialogue. Don't freak out when they tell you something bad. Just love them. And if they're feeling trapped by social media, because teenagers tend to compare their lives to people they don't know. Because when we compare our lives to faux happiness on social media, the only result is our very real unhappiness. Talk with your teenagers. Talk with them. Tell them that they're not alone. Tell them that there's hope and that they can move on from the challenges that they're facing. But it starts with you. It starts with you putting down your phone and valuing your kids more than you value that smartphone. Winning the attention war starts with 1 single second of strength, and you have the power to do it. Thank you for letting me come. Thank you for spending this time with me. Again, my name is Tanner Clark. You can find me on Instagram at Real Tanner Clark, and I'd love to hear from you. I hope this helped you, and I'd love to come to your school. And all you have to do that is reach out, connect with me, and we'll talk about coming to your school or your church so that we can help your teenagers wherever you're at.